Hi everyone, welcome to New York City's Water Conservation and Reuse Grant Pilot Program webinar. We're going to take just a couple more minutes to let attendees join, and we'll be starting very shortly. Thank you. All right, so we'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar to learn more about New York City's Water Conservation and Reuse Grant Pilot Program. If you have any technical difficulties, if you're not able to hear, please just send us a message in the chat. So we're looking forward to sharing the program with you this afternoon on our website and in our grant guide. We won't be able to respond to questions directly in this webinar, but we'll provide contact information and web links at the end of the presentation, and you're encouraged to follow up with us directly. The webinar will be posted on our website after the presentation, along with answers to the questions that we receive. We're going to share our program vision, the grant program overview. We'll discuss eligibility, the application process and timeline, and where to find more information. The goal of the grant program is to reimburse water efficiency projects on private property and to conserve potable water and reduce flows to the sewer system and wastewater facilities. The grant reimburses equipment, which two kinds: WaterSense certified fixture replacements for a fixed maximum unit price, and then we'll do custom water efficiency projects and retrofits that will be reimbursed for $10 per gallon per day savings, or up to 100% of documented equipment costs, whichever is less. And then we'll also reimburse for third-party facility water use surveys and design services. These are required for all retrofit projects. The facility water use survey is required for all retrofit projects as part of the application, except if you're proposing for a water reuse system in new construction, in which case designs will be required for the application. So if you use a third party for either the facility water use survey or design, we will reimburse these costs up to 20% of whatever your reimbursable equipment costs are as laid out in your application. Labor costs are not eligible for reimbursement under the program. For WaterSense certified fixture replacements, these are the fixtures and prices that we'll reimburse for. So residential toilets will be reimbursed for $125, shower heads, $45, bathroom sink aerators, $3, and commercial toilets, $650, and for urinals, $600. And funding for all other fixture replacements, such as the custom water efficiency projects or water reuse projects, would be calculated using the custom water efficiency retrofit funding rate of $10 per gallon per day. To help you understand the reimbursement, I'm going to outline an example of the sample grant project. In this case, the applicant is a hotel, and they plan to replace ice machines on each floor and replace toilets in guest rooms with WaterSense toilets. They're going to replace their commercial washing machine, and they're going to modify their cooling tower for water savings. This is a breakdown of their costs and their proposed retrofits. It includes both WaterSense toilet fixtures and the custom $10 per gallon per day saved. So walking through the table from left to right, we'll have the retrofit item, the number of units, the dollar per unit that will be reimbursed, and the expected water savings per unit, and the total water savings. And then, of course, the total reimbursable cost for each unit. So for toilets, which are WaterSense certified, the hotel is replacing 40 at $125 each, with water savings of 35 gallons per day per unit, totaling water savings of 1,400 gallons per day from these toilets. The total reimbursement cost is $5,000. They would also like to purchase, for example, 30 ice machines. This will be reimbursed at the rate of $10 per gallon per day savings. Each ice machine would save 600 gallons of water per day. The total savings per day from all the retrofitted ice machines would be 18,000 gallons per day, and therefore we would reimburse up to $180,000 for ice machines. Taken as a whole, all the retrofits would save 30,400 gallons per day, which is 11 million gallons per year. The total reimbursable equipment cost for these retrofits is $295,000. Now, we mentioned the facility water use survey, and as part of the application, they submitted a third-party facility water use survey. So we will reimburse an additional 20% of the total reimbursable equipment costs towards this. So there we will award an additional $59,000, which is 20% of the $295,000. This gives us a total grant amount of $354,000. So this is the total contracted not to exceed amount. For projects that involve on-site water reuse, New York City construction codes regulate different types of on-site water reuse systems: black water, gray water, and rainwater. The level of treatment depends on the alternate water source and the intended end use. The grantee is responsible for ensuring all on-site water reuse systems comply with permit requirements. So to be eligible for the grant, the proposed project must save at least 1 million gallons per year. That is roughly 2,740 gallons per day. The applicant has to have a DEP account in good standing with an automated meter reading device with at least 1 year of data. On-site water reuse and new construction do not have to have an AMR device in place. The proposed project would commence within 6 months following the notice to proceed. This also means that construction must wait until after the notice to proceed has been issued. The city would not reimburse for spending retroactively. The project would be constructed within 3 project completion. And the project would be operational for at least 10 years. The applicant must provide a complete application package, which would include the application form, the project work plan, and documentation of current or future water demand and potential savings. So this would be the facility water use survey that we mentioned, and in the case of an on-site water reuse project, a water calculator that is provided on the website. If a water use project, the proposed system must comply with the Department of Buildings Plumbing Code, Department of Health requirements, and any other applicable rules and regulations. Keep in mind that if you are interested in a water reuse system, it must save 1 million gallons of water per year. And if you are considering solely a rainwater reuse system, this means you will likely need to consider additional sources of water in order to meet those savings. The number of issued grants may be limited based on available funding, but applications will be evaluated for water savings, cost effectiveness. Applicants with a lower unit cost per gallon of potable water saved per day will have a higher ranking. The project schedule, applicants able to achieve savings on a shorter timeline will be preferable. Feasibility, this is particularly applicable to innovative water efficiency retrofits or projects. So we encourage applicants to provide detailed calculations of water saving estimates as part of their submitted project work plan in the application. Co-benefits, for example, an applicant that reduces significant wastewater or stormwater flows to the sewer system and wastewater facilities will rank higher. During the review period, I'll also just mention DEP may request to conduct site visits in coordination with the applicant in advance of announcing grant recipients. So now I'll go into further detail about the application process and timeline. Applications can be submitted through October 1st of this year. And your application package should include a completed application form, your project work plan, and the documentation of current future water demand and potential savings, as mentioned. So this documentation will look different depending on what type of water conservation project you are proposing. Equipment retrofits or replacements that would exclude on-site water reuse that would be taking place in an existing building must submit a facility water use survey for each building. If you are proposing an on-site water reuse system in a newly constructed building, you must submit a completed DEP on-site water reuse calculator, which I mentioned a little earlier. If you are proposing a combined equipment retrofits or replacements with an on-site water reuse system in an existing building or existing buildings, you must plan to submit a facility water use survey for each building and a completed DEP on-site water reuse calculator for those buildings that have particularly an on-site water reuse project. The application is found at the back of the grant guide on our website. If selected, DEP will send a grant acceptance package to the grantee, which I'll now discuss. We expect to announce our grant recipients in spring 2020 of next year. And the grantee, if awarded a grant, they must complete all the paperwork that they would receive within the grant acceptance package and return to DEP within 6 months. Upon approval, DEP will issue a notice to proceed. All of this paperwork needs to be completed before construction can begin on the proposed project. DEP, as I mentioned earlier, will not reimburse for equipment purchased prior to the notice to proceed. A little more detail about some of the paperwork that is in the acceptance package. We have a funding agreement and its required restrictive covenant that I'm going to discuss. Since this is a grant program supported with public funds, these documents ensure the integrity of whatever water conservation measures are being implemented on your private property. The grant acceptance package must be signed and completed in order to issue a notice to proceed and to provide these funds. As part of completing the funding agreement, which is in the grant acceptance package, you will need to file a restrictive covenant. The grantee must record the restrictive covenant with the New York City Department of Finance for each property receiving funding and insert the cover page as an appendix into the funding agreement. As I mentioned, DEP requires this completed acceptance package 6 months from the award letter date. A project manager can prepare, and property owner will have to be the one to sign this funding agreement and restrictive covenant. And a sample funding agreement and restrictive covenant can be found on the program webpage. And we strongly encourage you to review in advance of applying. After the funding agreement has been registered, the grantee will be issued the notice to proceed and construction can begin. At this time, DEP will also reimburse for third-party facility water use surveys and design services. So following the notice to proceed, the grantee must commence construction within 6 months and complete construction within 3 years. During the construction and commissioning, the grantee will be required to provide quarterly and annual status reports. The costs will be reimbursed at 3 different points. 1, after the notice to proceed has been issued, third-party facility water use surveys and design services can be invoiced. At 50% completion, any invoices that have been received at this time can be reimbursed. And then, once the project has been completed and approved, DEP will issue the final acceptance letter, and at that point, DEP will reimburse any remaining invoices. So for closeout, as I mentioned, there's a final inspection, and we'll verify that the project is. Following this, we'll issue a final acceptance letter. After the final acceptance documentation, as agreed upon in the funding agreement, and the final invoice for the water conservation project, and then the outcome being reimbursement for the remaining grant value. For operation and maintenance, the constructed water conservation project must be permanent and operational for a minimum of 10 years, beginning after the final disbursement of funds. DEP will monitor annual water use through the facility's automated meter reading device. If a system does not meet the program goal, the grantee must reimburse DEP for the entire grant funding amount received. If the project is an on-site water reuse system, the grantee will be required to submit reports per the maintenance plan stipulated in the grantee agreement. For more information, please visit our website for general information, program updates, the grant guide and application, which is found in the middle of the website. In the grant application guide, you'll also find the requirements for the facility water use survey, as well as supporting documents like the funding agreement, the restrictive covenant, and the water calculator for reuse projects. I'm also going to discuss a couple frequently asked questions that we've been getting. The first is, can projects that have been started or completed before the notice to proceed be reimbursed? So as I've been mentioning throughout the presentation, purchasing of equipment and construction of projects can begin after the notice to proceed. However, a portion of the facility water use survey or design can be reimbursed upon the notice to proceed, up to 20% of the reimbursable equipment costs if they're done by a third party. If I have several properties, do I need to apply for each one separately? Multiple properties with the same property owner may be grouped under a single grant application if at least 1 million gallons per year is saved across all of these properties. Each property would require a separate restrictive covenant to be filed, but it would still be considered one application. For the facility water use survey, can you recommend any vendors? What percentage of apartments need to be surveyed? DEP is not in a position to recommend any vendors, and applicants are strongly encouraged to do a complete survey to identify all potential fixtures that could be retrofitted. This is to ensure an accurate and complete application, and also to maximize potential water savings. And we would strongly encourage you to please provide your methodology. Well, thank you for listening. All grant program inquiries can be directed to waterconservation@dep.nyc.gov. Our phone number is 718-595-6242. While we won't be able to answer your questions this time, We'll happily take your questions, and please provide us with your questions, and we look forward to returning your calls or emails. And in addition, we're going to be posting a recording of this webinar to our website. And this concludes today's webinar. We look forward to receiving your applications by October 1st. Thank you very much.